Welcome back to the Other Side of 45's podcast. I'm your host, Randy Black. This podcast is about taking chances, owning my mistakes, addressing generational family trauma and curses, completing my 50/50s by 50 list, and my life as a single empty nester. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Please subscribe and rate this podcast 5 stars. So, let's hop right in. Sorry about that, something fell. In my family, the parents typically stop parenting when their child reaches middle school. This is the standard even to this day. Mother was involved when we were in elementary school. She would attend the Eat Lunch with Your Child Day and would send whatever treats the teacher requested. But once we reached middle school, she informed us that she was no longer signing forms, report cards, or notes from the teacher. She literally told us, "You know my name, you can sign it yourself." We were told that if we failed, she wasn't paying for summer school, so we better make sure we passed each grade to graduate on time. This made us in charge of our education. And as a young person, I didn't take my education seriously. Now, I was smart enough to pass and make decent grades, but I didn't live up to my potential. By the time I entered high school, it was rare for me to study or do homework at home. I would do homework for my fourth period class in third period. There were several times during lunch I would rush through my lunch to complete a homework assignment. So I remember when I was in high school, my guidance counselor, it could have been 9th or 10th grade, called me into her office. She was an African-American guidance counselor. She wasn't even at this high school very long. And back then, in South Carolina, I believe our standardized test was called BSAP, something of that nature. And we had taken the test and my results had come in. And as a guidance counselor, she had access to my records. And she called me into her office, just looking at the scores, and she said, "Why are you taking the classes, the general education classes?" Back then, you took general, basic, or advanced. And all my classes were general classes. So she was asking me why I was in these general classes. Now, I'm young, 9th, maybe 10th grade. So I just said, because all of my friends are there. It made sense to me because I rationalized that it didn't matter what level I was in. All of our diplomas were going to say the same thing. So I didn't care. And plus, I actually didn't want to work harder. Well, she and I went rounds, and I'm not going to lie, I don't even know what she was saying. I probably had zoned out right after she asked me that question. But she wanted me to challenge myself a little bit more because of the level of classes that I was taking. Like I said, I probably zoned out because I don't remember what she said, but I know that we ended that meeting with her changing the level that I was on in school. So this wasn't something that I wanted, but I let it happen. I was like, whatever. Yeah, whatever. And I did fine in those classes, even though I didn't take them seriously. Like I said, I rarely studied, but I still managed, even being placed in a higher, more rigorous class, I still managed to make pretty good grades. But I wanted something different for my children. As I got older and saw the life a little differently, and leaving such a small town to go to the city and the suburbs of Atlanta, I knew that I wanted something different. Once I had children, I wanted them to have something better. So I began volunteering at my children's school when my oldest was in kindergarten. Actually, that's not true. I attempted to volunteer when she was in the kindergarten. The school district we were in was heavily Hispanic, and the Parent-Teacher Association was 100% Hispanic, and no one spoke English. So when I tried to join, they told me I couldn't because I didn't speak Spanish. Now, the woman who I was talking to, she was the president. She spoke English, but she said all our meetings are in Spanish. All of our communications are going to be in Spanish. So, and I'm not going to translate for you. I kid you not. That is what she told me. So I didn't join. When I found that out, and through other things that was going on in my family, we didn't remain in that school district for the entire year. So we decided to move to an area with a more diverse school district, and a better home for my family. And that was the best decision for our family. The next school district we were in was more diverse and had an active parent-teacher association, PTA. Now listen, this podcast, I am not promoting the PTA, even though I was in PTA. I have nothing against the PTA. This podcast is, I am encouraging you to join whatever parent volunteer group your school has. That is all I'm saying. So although my experience will mostly be about PTA, because that's what my school had, I am in no way, shape, or form promoting it. I'm just saying get involved in whatever parent volunteer organization your school has. I'm gonna make sure I say that. Anyway, so the new neighborhood that I lived in, all of the houses had rather large yards, and my house was no different. And the yard that we had merged with my neighbor's yard. And so the kids were, like I said, my oldest was around kindergarten, so her sister was 13 months younger, so they were pretty young. So we were outside. It was a beautiful day, and we were watching the children play and enjoying the weather. And they oftentimes played with the neighbor's children. So the neighbor and I had gotten close, and we were out talking, watching the kids talking, enjoying the weather. And we began talking about the coming school year. Now, at that time, I was working outside the home, but had a flexible schedule. And she talked about several open positions on the PTA executive committee. Somehow she talked me and my sibling into joining the executive committee. I was elected as secretary. My sibling was vice president. That summer, we registered for the PTA's convention. I attended training to be the secretary and learned about bylaws. And I learned a lot about bylaws. That's actually one of the things that I love is, believe it or not, is reading bylaws for nonprofit organizations. The first year, I didn't just serve as secretary. I also joined committees, and I volunteered at the school as much as I could. And although my schedule changed over the years, I always tried to include time to volunteer on the PTA and the school as much as possible. So when the girls went to middle school, I'm assuming most schools are still like this, parent volunteers were encouraged. So I spent a good deal of time at the school, so much so that the teachers thought I worked there. And I would we walk in the halls, and I would get teachers say, "Where's your class?" And I would say, "I don't have a class. I am a parent." And I was like, "Wow, you're here a lot." So I had a really good relationship with the staff, and that had its advantages. And I'll give you an example. So one day, I needed to get the children out of school early. And I didn't have to wait in line. I remember there was a line of parents trying to sign their children out of school. I don't actually recall, but something had happened unexpected, and it caused an increase of early dismissals. So a lot of parents had rushed up to the school to sign their children out. So when I got there, it was already in line. And so the principal saw me in the line, and she called me to the front and went to the staff and she said, "Hey, go get the kids out of class." Now, the parents who were waiting in line were furious. And one of them said something to the principal. So the principal addressed them by simply saying, "When you do as much for the school as she does, then you can get the same treatment." She shut them down. I remember her, Dr. Smith. She was great. I served in several positions on the PTA throughout the years. What I found frustrating was that were the parents who complained about almost everything, but did nothing to help. When the girls went in elementary school, the teachers would send home communications to the parents in the child's folder. So the folder would include assignments, things that they needed to be signed, what the school and the class was working on, and other pertinent information. One year, don't remember what year, I was the room parent because I was a room parent a good bit at the time that they were in elementary school. And since I was a room parent, I had all of the parents' email addresses and phone numbers. I had sent an introduction email to the entire class at the beginning of the year and several email throughout the year to keep the parents updated on class events and that involve parents. For any event where parent involvement was requested, I would communicate to the parents via email and send communication in the child's folder. Sometimes it'd be a flyer. This particular party or event was no different. Most of the parents read the update and responded to me. On the day of the party, I'm telling you this story about one particular time. On the day of the party, I get a call from one parent. She's an African-American mother. She had not opened her child's folder or read her email because she found out about the party the day before and didn't do whatever it was that was asked in the communication that was sent to her in her child's folder. I worded it this way because that was a long time ago, and I don't remember what we were doing, what she had missed. I don't remember. I do remember that it was toward the end of the year. Anyway, I'm at the school. I'm knee deep in this class party when I get this call from a number I don't recognize. But because I was a room parent, it was common for parents to say, hey, where are you? They'll be looking for me, whatever. So I always answered unknown phone calls. So this was not that unusual. So I answered this call. And the caller asked me if I was who I am. She used my government name. And I confirmed that she had reached the correct person. She introduced herself and began telling me why she called. And she was upset. She had just found out the day before from her child about the day's festivities. She complained about how she was like, I work, and she didn't want her child to be the only one without whatever it was, and how unfair it was that me in particular, since I was a room parent, expected parents to be available this late. She was like, you don't give enough notice, and I can't, and I let her get all that out. I didn't interrupt her. And after her rant, I told her that this communication had been sent out several weeks before the event. I also let her know that I too was a single working parent and kept that in mind when I sent communication, allowing a lot of time to adjust busy family schedules. She tried to make the excuse that she had somehow this one time missed the communication that was sent in her child's folder, but that she usually reads everything. Then I reminded her that the communication had also been sent via email. Feeling defeated, she then had the audacity, and it is audacity, to suggest that I call each parent to make sure that they get the communication. Not being an employee of the school and just a parent, I was not held to the same standards as a school employee. And I often use this to my advantage. Like, I would get real with parents. So in this particular instance, I would say things that teachers and staff wish they could say but couldn't. And this time was no different. So I responded to her. I said, I sent communication to all the parents the same way the entire year. No one ever had an issue with it. You say you're a busy parent, working parent, so am I. You think I have time to plan events and take the time to call each parent? If you can't take the time to read a flyer or an email in your leisure, what makes you think I have time to call parents? Then I asked her, are you volunteering to call parents when we have school or class events to make sure they know? And if you're not, then don't make suggestions on how I should spend my time. Email in your child's communication folder is a method that was established at the beginning of the year. So, of course, she apologized and thanked me for everything I had done for the class and ended the call. Now, when the girls were in middle school, I was working 2 jobs, but I still made time to volunteer and serve on the PTA. But at this stage in their education, parents volunteering in school was restricted to after school events or before school events, before school started. which made it easier for me. Technology had improved for the schools, and keeping up with their grades was much easier as the girls got older. So I knew which subjects they struggled with and would work with the administration to get them the help they needed. And I like to believe that this contributed to my daughter's educational success. Now, I didn't do the same thing with both girls. I adjusted my approach with each girl because there's no one size fits all when it comes to raising children. You do what works with for you and your family. The only thing I say is just do something. Just do something and don't give up. So there's a customer where I work who updates me on her son when she sees me. So at the beginning of the current school year, she expressed that she was worried about her son, and she said she didn't think he was going to graduate or he might not get into college. And okay, side note, I have got to get her on a podcast. Matter of fact, before I started this podcast, I told her that once I got it established, I was going to invite her because she's an Indian woman who has gone against her Indian upbringing, especially how she raises her children. Her story is great and it fits my brand. You'll love her. Like she has the same issues, similar issues, I should say, with her family because she does things differently. And she always says to me, we don't do that in my culture and my family. She gets a lot of flack. So I've got to get her on the podcast so that you can hear her story. Anyway, so a couple months ago, I want to say maybe around Christmas or so. I don't know. Y'all know I don't do dates. Anyway, so she had updated me that her son got into college. It might have been this year. I don't know. Anyway, her son got into college. So we were both really excited. I'm so happy for her. And I told her, I said, see, she said, I know, I was so nervous. I said, I told you he would get in. He's fine. She's like, I can finally breathe. Yes, he's okay. So, that's just, every time I think about it, and when I see her, we're always smiling. I'm so happy that she made it through this with her son. Now, in contrast, I know a family who has had some challenges with their teenage son. He also is a senior this year. And I found out very recently that they have officially given up on him because he was being disrespectful. The son has moved out of his father's house and in with a relative. And the father is refusing to speak with the son because of this level of disrespect. And I learned recently that 2 local colleges, Georgia State and Kennesaw State University, are both test optional for the fall. I shared this information with the family since they had told me that the son did not do well on his SATs and they had concerns that he would not be able to get into college. Do you know that father refuses to share this information with his son? How sad. Now, I'm not going to go any further. All I can say is I'm not a fan of this man, even before I found out that he refuses to share this information. I just am not a fan of this man. But anyway, I understand the frustration parents feel, especially when our children reach teenage years. But we cannot give up on them. So find your tribe as a parent. And I was fortunate to have a good tribe of like-minded parents who encouraged me and kept me grounded when my girls were teenagers. And those people are some of my closest friends to this day. And I got them through the PTA. So no matter where you are on your child rearing journey, find your tribe. Stay positive, be supportive, and remember, this too shall pass. Even if your child chooses a different path than the one you had planned, it doesn't mean you failed as a parent. Now, I know I'm fortunate. My girls are thriving, but the road wasn't easy. And it's not like we're done. They still have a ways to go until they graduate from college, but no matter what they decide, I know that I did everything with the best intention, which provides me with a measure of comfort when it comes to this part of parenting. Like, I'm trying to be really careful or how I word this on this part of parenting, because I don't want anybody to say you weren't that comfortable about, and you're right. But this part of parenting, I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. So, like the theme song of my life, Just Right Just Fine by Mary J. Blige says, I like what I see when I'm looking at me, when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stretch through the night at the time of my life. Ain't worried about if you feel it. I got my head on straight. I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. You see, I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. I don't know why I said it like that. Anyway, update. My next certification is my brand management certification. That class starts this week. So excited. I did finish the website. So right now it's just a landing page for the podcast, but you can send a message on the website to me, and the website is theothersideof45.com. I'll keep you all updated on the progress on the website and the business, because I got a lot of great things coming soon. Meet me on the Other Side of 45's podcast, website, and Instagram. New episodes of the podcast will be released every Monday. Thank you for tuning in. Please rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so others can find it. It helps me grow my podcast. Your feedback and support is greatly appreciated.